Hey guys, Huzz here bringing you another video. Now today's extra video is kind of a league discussion, but it's more of a story time, if you will. And we're going to be talking about my competitive history in League of Legends. So every now and then in my commentaries, it comes up that like, oh, I used to play competitive. And I haven't really expanded on that point in a while. I'm pretty sure I would have covered this topic maybe a year ago or something, but I haven't done it in a while. So, and maybe I haven't done a video just by itself talking about it. So what we're going to be covering today, or attempting to, is we're going to be talking about what type of competitive games did I play, how did I get into competitive league, and then the teammates that I have. You know, are there any people that are doing quite well from our older days of competitive? Because obviously me was competitive, was doing YouTube on the side. After I finished doing competitive, I went all the way into YouTube with completing my degree, and now I'm a YouTuber, right? So are there any other kind of success stories from my old teammates? So, yeah, hopefully you guys will enjoy this. And what I'll say is, because it's not really a league discussion, you know, many of you probably haven't played competitive. What I'll say, if you've got questions about competitive at all, just leave the questions in the comments, and I will try to get to it. But if you enjoy this type of thing, and maybe you want some more story times, even though I can talk about LANs and actually going to tournaments and stuff, then throw a like on the video and I'll do more. So let's begin. So, why did I get into competitive League of Legends, I think, is the first and primary question, and that's fairly straightforward. I come from a competitive background. So, believe it or not, even though my appearance may be a little bit whatever right now, is I used to be very high level in multiple sports. You know, I was A-League champion 2 times in a row in football in my area. County athletics. I was actually a very fast runner. I know people go, no, you weren't. I was like, yeah, I've changed a lot. You know, if you look at my pictures from 2010 comparing to now, people probably wouldn't recognize me. So I was a different person, but I was very competitive. And obviously, just because I stopped playing sport, I kept that competitive nature. And with that competitive nature, after doing sport, I turned it to, you know, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, where in both of those games I succeeded. I was in the top 5 in the world in Call of Duty at one stage on World of War. And in World of Warcraft, I was a top 200 hunter top 200 world hunter for about a year, maybe just over a year in DPS charts. So very competitive because, you know, even though I'm not doing that sport, I had to do something to a higher level. So naturally, when League of Legends became my main game, even though I wasn't very good, I always wanted to kind of take it to the next level. So in I want to say season 2, when I, again, wasn't a good player, I was a silver player back then, I started playing tournaments. And I played with some people that I still talk to this day. So some of you may know Galzuk. He was a moderator. He's a Twitch moderator still. He's on my Discord, talk to him every day. So Galzuk I was playing with, maybe Eben, potentially Eben, but I'm not entirely sure. But then 2 people that you would never have heard of as well. And we played competitive, and all we did is we entered the Go for LoL tournaments. I have no idea if they still go on. But generally, they were, I think, every Saturday. There were about 600 teams that entered every single weekend. Any ratings, and you just played a tournament. So you had first round, played that team. If you lose, you're out. If you win, you move to the next stage. And that helped me a lot, I think, develop my competitive kind of nerves, I say. Because, you know, whenever say you're a diamond player and you're playing in your first ever tournament, you're going to be stupidly nervous. But I played tournaments when I was silver, so I knew I wasn't going to win tournaments. So I got used to tournaments without being nervous. And I think that helped me a lot. So we did that. Didn't win anything. Probably come anywhere near to winning. So I did that, and I got used to tournaments. Didn't do them for a while from that point, and then Season 3 came around, and that's when obviously League of Legends became my main game. Got good at the game, so much so that I got Diamond within a few, I want to say, months of the season coming out, and then obviously making my way eventually to Diamond 1 later in the season. But in this time, my YouTube was getting bigger, and with my YouTube getting bigger, I started talking to more YouTubers. And one of those specifically, a lot of you will know who he is Fi. We're obviously very good friends to this day. Don't talk every day, but we talk quite a lot. And we obviously work together in some things that you guys probably don't know about yet. But yeah, we were very good friends. And we decided, why don't we just play some tournaments? Originally, it was just for a bit of fun. But then both of us being YouTubers, it was like, maybe we could make this into content. But then it turned into something a bit more serious than we expected. So the first team that we played on was Fighters, spelled Phy, obviously, as in Phi's name. So Fighters, I think it was Fighters Esport from memory. I don't exactly remember who was on this team, like fully. All I know is it was more like a beginning training team. We didn't really do anything of note while we were in fighters from memory. And we just did it for fun, getting used to competitive scrimming people and that type of thing. So that's what we did for a while. And then eventually that fighters team got rebranded and changed to Absolute Zero. So Absolute Zero was the competitive team that I've been in the most. We had a logo. It was a polar bear. It actually looked really cool. And this is where my competitive games and obviously Fi's. One thing to say is me and Fi's competitiveness in League of Legends are kind of linked. So most of our careers, not all, I have done a few tournaments without him and he's done a few without me, but most of what we've done has been on the same team. So Fighters, then Absolute Zero, and then another team that I'll talk about later. But Absolute Zero is kind of the next step up. So we started to do okay in tournaments. You know, I'm talking top 10 at the beginning. So top 10 in tournaments, then top 5s, and then every now and then a top 3. And that's obviously when you win Riot points is when you get like top 3. So if anybody is ever wondering, how do I own so much stuff on my account? Yes, I've bought a lot of stuff myself. I've spent thousands on my main account. But also doing well in tournaments, you get Riot points as a reward, or you used to in the past. So doing one tournament a week and coming 3rd place for a few times in a row, you build up Riot points. I think you got like 2,000 Riot points for 3rd place or something like that. So if you do that one tournament every week, suddenly you got 8,000 Riot points a month just coming in, and you're just getting 3rd place. So we did that, and this is when I'd say the UK scene. I have not kept up to the UK scene to today, but the UK scene was actually quite good back in the day. You had teams that kind of rivaled each other, and because it's so small, everybody knew each other, and because everybody knew each other, you could counter each other, right? So you could ban out specific people if they were one tricks. They didn't really do anything. Some people that kind of spring to mind. One guy was called Dandy Chap from memory, and he was a fiddle one trick. Yeah, everybody just banned his fiddlesticks, and then I think he picked up Kale or Jax, and obviously he wasn't as good as them. But then it's like, if you're entering a tournament, that was a little bit weird, so he just got banned out. And from memory, I believe I played against Azo, the Z YouTuber, a couple times, because I always remember our name was Absolute Zero, but when it was in a tournament format, it was Azo, and his name was Azo as well, but just with a H at the end. And obviously he was a Z1 trick at the time, so we just banned Z against him. So that's kind of when our competitiveness was building, and this would have been mid to late season 3. And, you know, did we ever win a tournament? I think we might have won a couple. No massive noticeable one. All these are online tournaments. You know, second occasionally. And, you know, we just kind of built our way into kind of, I'd say we were regularly, or would probably be deemed in the top 5 of the UK at the time. Which is good, you know, that for a whole country in that, even though the UK scene is not known as the most competitive, we was pretty happy with that. And then eventually, you know, I'll talk about teammates specifically later on. I'm just kind of saying what teams I played on and what we did. So eventually that team did break off. And it broke off to, I'd say sadly, to poor communication. And I'll say if you're ever in a competitive environment and you're either, you know, high rating or low rating, doesn't matter, and you have one teammate that's just not performing, the best thing you can do is talk to that person instead of basically trying to worm their way out and like reforming the team without them. Don't do that way. Just be honest and open because it just kind of shatters stuff if you leave it kind of that way. So that was a pity that Absolute Zero did end that way. And then I did not play competitive for a while. You know, maybe that, you know, firstly, I was the player that didn't play well, and I was the player that kind of got, in a way, kicked, but didn't get told I was getting kicked. I was like, oh yeah, we're not playing competitive anymore. And then a week later, there's a tournament going on and they're playing with a new person. It's like, oh, that kind of sucks. So there's that. So it hurt, and I didn't play competitive for a while. But then eventually, I got back into it a bit. And I haven't done basically a lot of tournaments since, but I did one big noticeable one, and that was the Riot Battlegrounds tournament. So officially now, if you were to enter Riot Battlegrounds right now, they still do them. They're called the Ragnarok tournaments. You may have seen it on the client. That is now a Challenger Series qualifier. So the Challenger Series are just the thing below LCS. That's what the tournament is, the Riot Battlegrounds tournament. My team won that, and the team was called Huzzy for LCS. So obviously it's kind of a good advertisement for me. It was more of a joke. And it was a tournament, from memory, there were about 700 teams in it from all over the UK and Ireland. And there weren't many good teams in it, though, is what I'd say. Is the problem that you had, again, in the UK, is there weren't many good teams. In any given day, there were maybe 5 good teams. And when I say good teams, I'm talking that all of them are kind of high diamond players with competitive history. That's kind of what I'm talking about. And with the Riot Battlegrounds tournament specifically, it was tournament season. So what I mean by that, it was, I think, summer, which means LANs are all over the country that people actually attend. And from memory, the first week of the Riot Battlegrounds tournament, there was a LAN on. So a lot of the really good teams in the UK wasn't able to enter the Riot Battlegrounds. And we did, obviously. And I think there may have been, say, 3 good teams in this tournament. And, well, let's just say we won that tournament without losing a single game. It was a fairly easy tournament to win. Our main competitor was in the different bracket to us, so we would only ever meet them, I think, if in the final. And we were like, okay, that's our main competitor this tournament, and we knew that basically from round 1. They were friends of some of the guys in the team from memory, if I'm remembering correctly, and they got cheesed. So it was a 1 round games until I think the semi-final or something, or maybe even the final. Maybe it was only like a best of 5 or something. They got cheesed and they got knocked out, and everybody was like, whoa, that team got cheesed with like platinum play. Like they lost to like platinum players, and they got completely cheesed, and we were like, oh, okay, this is a free tournament for us. So officially, moral of the story for that is I am a official Riot tournament winner. So if you ever go in the history books of Riot tournaments, like Riot held tournaments, my team is the first UK and Ireland champions, technically. So that's kind of cool. That's something that I'll always remember fondly. And yeah, that's kind of my competitive history. So nothing crazy. You know, some people say, oh, were you a pro? No, I was never a pro. The way you could kind of word it was like maybe semi-pro. That we did have potential sponsors that were coming down the line if we got certain stuff done. But all the teams that I kind of was on always kind of just stopped playing on before we actually hit those targets, so we never got those sponsorships. But it did a lot for me. Like, again, playing in the competitive, being in the top 5 of the UK, doing well and getting top 3 in a lot of tournaments in my career, winning that Riot Battlegrounds stuff, it was nice, and I do miss it. You know, I'd potentially even go further into competitive now than I ever would, because obviously now League is technically my job, and I'd want to put a lot of time into it, but I don't know if I ever will. The problem with also obviously being a YouTuber is this takes a lot of time, surprisingly. And I know a lot of people think it doesn't, but it does. And then also when you're playing competitive, you need to be very good at the game individually, but also you need to be good with your team. And meshing all that together would probably be too difficult, and I'd have to invent time that simply doesn't exist. So that's basically the story of competitive, is that's my team, so Fighters, Absolute Zero, and then Huzzy for LCS. Some people say, what about Team Dignitas? I was never a player in Team Dignitas. I was signed as a content creator. I've always been obviously open about that, because obviously I was in the organization for over a year. I obviously did speak to LCS players while I was in the org. I do have LCS players on my friends list on my main account. So I am, I'd say, on the borderline of that world, but I'm not in that world. Like, having a friendly conversation with a couple of pros, that's basically the limit of where I am with LCS. I will never join LCS. I had never any intention to join LCS, because to me, I'd much prefer to be a content creator with, it's still stressful, but less stress than being a pro player in League. So that's just personally my 2 cents. So let's specifically talk about the players that I played with. So who were my teammates? Any noticeable or notable people? So I'll say, if you are an ex-teammate of mine, this is going to sound weird, and I forget you, I will apologize. In the 3 main esport teams that I was a part of, we went through a lot of people. Like, these comps and roster changes happened frequently, so I don't probably remember everybody, so I will apologize. So back in my Season 2 competitive days, when I was just playing for fun, without a care in the world, obviously it was Galzuk, it was potentially Eben, but then it was a guy called Patsy and a guy called Gaz. Those 2 guys, well, all these people were basically from my World of Warcraft days. That's why we weren't very good. And it was fun. You know, we played that for a while. Then eventually I played with more people that were from a Call of Duty competitive background, and they were on Team Forsaken or something like that. Played with them for a while, and then eventually we split up. I can't actually... No, I do. One was called Twin Ego, and the other one was called Tiger. My memory is actually quite good, surprisingly. And then moving forward to more competitive stuff. So fighters, I really don't remember who was on fighters apart from me and Fi. It might have been the same people who were on Absolute Zero, for all I know, but I can't actually remember, so I don't really want to speculate. But obviously Fi and me were on fighters. And then moving more, I'd say, onto the interesting team member, really, is Absolute Zero. Was obviously, like I mentioned, is the more serious one that I was a part of for the longest time, played the most tournaments in Absolute Zero. And our teammates were obviously me and Fi, once again. A guy called Vale, who I'm not sure what he's doing anymore. Again, some, you know, people fall out of contact or they stop playing League, and I'm pretty sure Vale doesn't play League anymore. But he was a very, very good Thresh player. And as a side anecdote, if you guys remember the Triforce song, the Barbra Streisand mix with Freak with Triforce, do you remember that video? It blew up, it was viral. Vale actually made that video, so that's kind of funny. But yeah, Vale was our support for a while. He did swap roles to jungle every now and then because he was a good Lee Sin as well. But mainly the support. Don't know what he's doing sadly anymore, but he was a nice guy. Next was Half Past Thor. Now Half Past Thor was a good mid laner, and for a while after Absolute Zero, when it all fell through, I know he stayed playing competitive for at least another year. Again, I don't really talk to him anymore. I don't really see him online, so I don't know what he's doing. For all I know, he still is playing League. I'm not sure. But yeah, he was a very good mid laner, but don't know what he's doing. But obviously then Fi went and after, you know, stopped doing competitive, went on to becoming a main YouTuber, and now has obviously over 500,000 subscribers, so obviously Fi's doing quite well. But then the teammate that I oddly am the most proud of is a guy called Duffman. So some of you may remember him if you've been with the channel for a long time, some of you may not, but he was mainly a top lane main from memory, and he loved Quinn. So obviously me and him clashed a little bit there, but he loved Quinn from memory, and he had a Smurf dedicated to that champion. But the reason why I'm proud of him more than any one of us is, sure, me and Fi are doing good with YouTube. Obviously Fi's doing amazing, I'm doing okay. And but Duffman actually holds a professional position in the world of League of Legends. So sure, me and Fi can say we're professional YouTubers, but we can't say we're like professional people within League of Legends, I'd say. Like, it's different. Duffman is actually the head analyst to G2 Esports. So obviously quite good, right? So I don't know, I'm proud of him in that way. And this video, partially, the why I'm making this video is, one, people do ask me about my competitive history, but two, I got reminded, you know, I follow him on Twitter, I follow G2 on Twitter, obviously. I'm not a massive fan of the organization, but I support them because of Duffman. And he is at MSI later today. If you're watching this video the day of release, they are playing against SKT, I think. And Duffman will be the main guy that is going to be telling the actual LCS team, G2, what they should be looking out for, what they should be doing, what SKT's ward habits are, what their pick habits are, if there's a rotation, what are they doing. Duffman would be doing hundreds of hours, maybe he has a team under him, I don't know, but he would be doing hundreds of hours into every single match that they are going to be playing in MSI. And to hold a professional title of head analyst of an organization, that is something to be proud of. And honestly, and it's a weird way to put it, but a lot of it, I haven't spoken to him in a while, and I'm actually probably going to try and, you know, after MSI, he's probably busy, but I'm probably going to catch up with him. He probably got that bug of analysis because of Absolute Zero. He was every single time that he played for our team, he was making notes. He was saying, when we were playing tournaments, we knew who our opponents was going to be. He'd scout them out. He'd make notes on what each player's weaknesses were, what champions that they play. Even back then, he was doing this. And then eventually, I think he went a bit too much into it, analysis, so he stepped down from being a player in Absolute Zero and became our analyst. And he did all that, but even more. He started doing it for us and giving us notes. And it was amazing. Like, sometimes, you know, I disagree, and all of us would, but you could tell he knew what he was doing. And from that translation, he went boom, and then from memory, he started doing articles for certain websites, you know, all about analysis, and then obviously got picked up by G2, I think a while ago. I think he's been over there for a year, but I think he was just an analysis, but now he's head analyst. So that's something to be proud of, that, you know, he's done that, and it's cool, right? You know, all of us, you know, some of us are doing well within League of Legends, I'd say, you know, doing well, making videos and that, but to see a guy that you used to play with, and seeing him, you know, how it happened, to going pro. That's awesome. Like, that's really cool. So I'd say if you like G2 esports, there's another reason for you to support them, because an ex-teammate of mine is their head analyst. If you don't like G2, maybe this helps you like them more. And, you know, I'd say just to kind of give him a shout out, because I know he probably isn't a big social media person or anything like that, but his Twitter is Duffman. DuffmanLol, at DuffmanLol. So, yeah, you follow him. He's only got 288 followers, so, you know, let's try and give him a bit more than that. But I'm rooting for him, and I hope he does well. He's a Scottish guy, so, yeah. So there's that. After that, we went to Huzzy for LCS. Oh, wait, before that, sorry, in my competitive thing with Absolute Zero, we actually did have a B team as well, and I'm not going to go into the B team, but basically they were scrimming partners to us, they did tournaments as well, and they did okay, but we had a B team in Absolute Zero. And then, moving on, Huzzy for LCS, so really the last competitive team that I've been a part of, just doing that big one tournament. That was obviously me and Fi again, there's a pattern emerging. That was Mexi, again, from memory, Mexi, Shawzy, and Eddie. They all got Y's at the end of their name. I suppose all of us do. Huzzy, Fi, Eddie, Shawzy, or might be an E, and Mexi. So, Eddie was the top laner. He was a master top laner back in Season 5. Really nice guy. I still talk to him every now and then. Not crazy into League anymore, but I think he might want to get back into it. I'm not really sure, but he's playing other stuff. But really nice guy. He's really friendly. We get on quite well. And obviously him. We had then Mexi, who I believe was the support, if obviously memory serves correct. Support was Mexi. And I'd say from all the supports that laned with Fi, because obviously Fi was the AD carry, I'd say Mexi was the best with Fi. In Fi's playstyle, aggression level, everything. I'd say Mexi was the best with him, and they performed the best together. So there's that. And then Shawzy was our mid laner, and he was an amazing mid laner, especially with Anivia from memory, and really good player. And now I think Mexi, I think he's just come back to League, I think. And Shawzy now plays Heroes of the Storm, I think to a good level in that as well. So people are still doing stuff, people are still gaming to a high level, so that's obviously really cool. And that's pretty much it. Like, from everybody that I kind of remember and stuff like that, that's pretty much all the history. And again, one thing I haven't covered is what roles did I play in competitive. Some people are probably going to be asking that. So I played 3 roles in my time of competitive: top, mid, and jungle. They varied. My most success, I'd say, as a competitor was top lane, and that's where I mainly played in Absolute Zero, but I did do occasional mid stuff in tournaments, and I did do jungle. The Riot Battlegrounds, the biggest tournament I ever won, I was actually jungling in that tournament. So I jumped around, you know, I'm not a player that bogs myself down. One of the biggest frustrations, if you ever said to Fi, what was your biggest frustration with Huzzy when it came to competitive, I know his answer already. It was my it was actually back in those days, lack of definitive champion pool. And I know that's surprising with me saying that way right now, but back in those days, I got bored way too easily of playing meta champions and the same champions all the time. So let's say for one patch, back in the day as top lane, you either played Renekton or you played Shyvana. Yes, Shyvana was a top laner. You only played those 2 champions, and I got too bored, so I started playing other stuff. And I started going, okay, I'm going to play Jace this game. And my team were like, okay, play Jace. And they were like, are you going to play Jace again? You did well. Nah, I'm not going to play Jace again. I'm going to play Renekton this game. And I'm going to play Rengar top this game. I jumped around way too much, and I wasn't consistent in that. Some games, like I played a carry playstyle back then. I carried like crazy and did very well. Other games I'd feed. And that all because my champion pool was jumping around too much, and I didn't really get enough practice on good champions for my team. So that was my biggest weakness in competitive. But obviously, saying that, I still did quite well. Again, for a guy that had no aspirations of going pro in League, I didn't want to go LCS. Winning tournaments, getting tens of thousands worth of Riot points for free, that's fine with me. And then the creme of the piece of the cake, whatever, the cherry in the top, is winning an official Riot tournament that it will never be taken away from me. It was literally on the front page of the League of Legends client maybe a year and a half ago. that's cool. Like, that's something that I'll always know and remember. And yeah, that's awesome. So that's pretty much going to be it. This video went longer than expected, but like always, I talk too much. But if you guys did enjoy this story time, let me know. If you've got any questions about competitive, leave them down below. So like and subscribe. See you guys next time. And remember, cheer for G2 just because of Duffman. And I'll see you guys next time. See ya.